Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make meringue cookies. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am going to be sharing one of my most popular and probably even most unique cookie recipes on the blog. This meringue cookie recipe has been around for a couple years now. It's already received hundreds of 5-star reviews, so it's about time that I share it in a video form. So to get started, you are going to want to preheat your oven to 225 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, we are going to grab 4 eggs. Now, for today's recipe, we are only going to be using the egg whites. If you want to save the yolks, I will link to some recipes below that you can use. That way you don't have to just toss the yolks. Now, egg whites can kind of be a little bit of a pain in the butt to work with. Anytime you're working with them, it is very important that any surface they touch be completely clean, completely dry, and completely grease-free. If not, then your egg whites are probably not going to whip to stiff peaks like we need them to do for today's meringues. Another important tip, you do not want to get even a tiny bit of yolk in with your egg white. If that happens, you're going to need to toss that egg white out because it's been contaminated, and that little bit of yolk will also keep the eggs from whipping up to stiff peaks. Now, I always crack my eggs into a separate bowl than the bowl that I'll be mixing them in, because if I get a tiny bit of yolk in there, I don't want to have to toss out all of my egg whites. I only want to have to lose one. I do recommend that you use room temperature eggs for this recipe. I'm going to be saving the yolks to make creme brulee later. I'll link to that recipe below. Now, if you see that stringy white protein in your egg white, you do want to make sure that goes in with the rest of your egg white and goes in your mixing bowl. It's going to help your meringues whip up properly. Now, if you haven't made meringue cookies before, you probably don't want your first try to be on a rainy day. The humidity can actually keep the egg whites from whipping properly, and it can make your meringues too soft on the inside. One of the nice things about meringue cookies is you only need a few ingredients to make them. You need your egg whites, a little bit of salt, cream of tartar, granulated sugar, and vanilla extract. And the vanilla extract is actually optional. I just really like to use it because it gives the cookies a nice marshmallowy flavor. We're going to be adding a ½ teaspoon of cream of tartar in with our egg whites, and an 1/8 teaspoon of salt. We're just going to stir these ingredients together until the mixture begins to become foamy. I'm using my whisk attachment today. You can use a paddle attachment instead. Either one is completely fine. And I'm just stirring these together on low speed at this point. I really prefer using my KitchenAid whenever I'm making meringue just because there's a lot of whipping involved, but you could use an electric hand mixer if you have the patience. My cream of tartar is sticking to the side, so I'm going to use a completely clean, completely dry, grease-free spatula just to kind of loosen that up a little bit. Once it's nice and foamy, we're going to gradually increase our speed all the way up to high. All right, once your mixer is going at high speed, you're going to want to grab your sugar. You'll need 1 cup of granulated sugar for this recipe, and we're just going to be adding it about a tablespoon at a time. So we'll keep our mixer running on high speed, and we're going to continue to stir the sugar into the egg mixture until it's dissolved. That's going to take about 15 to 20 seconds. Don't try to rush this process or your sugar won't dissolve completely and your meringues won't turn out properly. A good way to tell that your sugar has dissolved is just to listen. You can hear the paddle or the whisk scraping the side of the bowl, and you can usually hear a little bit of grit from the sugar. If you're not hearing that, you're usually safe to go ahead and add your next tablespoon of sugar. It's a lot easier if you're using a metal bowl than if you're using a glass, but it still works here. About halfway through, I like to pause and use a spatula just to scrape the bowl, just so that any sugar that's formed on the side will get knocked back down and nicely incorporated into the meringue. Once you've added all of your sugar, you're going to want to continue to beat until your meringue is thick and shiny and it's increased in volume. Now, you also want to make sure that all of the sugar has been incorporated and there are no grains left in the meringue. A good way to test this is just to take a little bit of it and rub it between your fingers. If you feel any granules, if it feels a little bit gritty, the sugar is not completely incorporated. Mine is not completely incorporated at this point, so we're going to continue to beat it until the sugar's dissolved. All right, I let this go for about another minute, another 2 minutes, so let's feel it again. Much better. Now, if you want to add any food coloring or flavorings, you would add them at this point. I am going to be using just a little bit of vanilla extract. This is just a teaspoon of vanilla, and I'll stir it in now. You could mix this in by hand. I'm just going to mix it with my mixer on low speed. And just briefly mix everything together. It is possible to overbeat meringue, so you don't want to push it once you get to that point where your sugar's dissolved and it's nice and thick and glossy. So we're ready to pipe these at this point, so I'm going to transfer the batter to a large piping bag, and I have fitted mine with the Ateco 846 tip. You can really use any tip you would like. This is just my preferred. Now this recipe makes a lot of meringues and they take a long time to bake, so I like to cook them all at the same time. So if you have a large baking pan, I recommend using one. If you use 2 cookie sheets instead, that will work. You might just need to increase the baking time a little bit. Make sure to adjust your oven rack to the lower and middle rack if using 2. If just using one rack, you're going to want to make sure it's in the center of your oven. Now these meringue cookies should not spread in the oven at all, so you can actually place them pretty close to each other while you're piping them. The meringues I'm piping today are about 1 inch wide and 1 inch tall. If you make yours larger, they'll need a bit more time to bake. If yours are smaller, they'll need a little bit less time. Another bonus of these cookies is that each one is only about 25 calories. We'll take these over to our 225-degree Fahrenheit preheated oven, where they're going to need to bake for 1 hour. Once that hour has passed, you are going to want to turn off your oven and let them sit for another 1 to 2 hours or until they are dried completely. You'll know they're finished because they should be nice and crisp if you cut or bite into one. Now, meringue cookies should generally be crisp when you bite into them. If you found that yours have gone soft, there are a couple different reasons that might have happened. Usually it's the humidity, but you can fix that. Just preheat your oven back to 225 degrees Fahrenheit, pop your meringues back in the oven for about 10 to 20 minutes, watch them. If they begin to turn golden brown, they are getting cooked too much, and then just turn off your oven and let them sit in there for another hour. That usually does the trick to dry them back out, make them nice and crisp again. And that's all there is to making meringue cookies at home. I hope if you were intimidated by the thought of these cookies before, this video helped put your mind at ease. They're actually pretty simple, just a little bit of technique involved. If you tried this one out, please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Nice and crisp. Kind of makes me think of a nice marshmallow.